Hello, astrologer Brian Coulter here for your horoscope report for the upcoming Scorpio new moon that happens on October 27th at 8:39 p.m. Pacific time. New moons are when the sun and the moon are in what's called a conjunction in the sky. Now, the sun, the literal sun, is the center of the solar system. You know, all the planets wing around the sun, and it's kind of the boss of the sky. As above, so below. The astrological sun is kind of the boss of our heads. It's our ego, but not in the negative sense of the word. It's identity, sanity, words like this, image, values, intentions. So needless to say, it's a very important factor of anyone's birth chart. It's really the central path through which our life is guided. But the moon is the center of our chest. It's our heart, it's our soul, it's our emotional world, our subjective reality. The moon doesn't think, it just feels, it reacts. So during a new moon, here they are, the sun and the moon next to each other, and we're attempting to take this long journey down from our heads to our hearts, and not solely be in the heart, but just find a deeper connection, because most of us are kind of trapped in our heads, So more congruency with the desires of the heart and the intentions of the mind. That's a new moon concept. And it's also about a recalibration or a recentering, a new beginning in our life. So a new beginning for this period of time, which is a lot more, let's say, turbulent, scorpionic. Now, I said go from our head to our heart. And really, that is an understatement here, because yes, the new moon's in Scorpio, but we also have two other planets in Scorpio, the planet Venus, also Mercury. I'll also add to this that we always want to take a look at the planets that rule the new moon sign, Scorpio, which there are two, the more modern rulership of Pluto and the more classical rulership of Mars. And lo and behold, Mars and Pluto are square to each other. Okay, it's a little bit of a loose square, but they're still square to each other in a bit of a face-off. And so this is creating this Scorpio energy just maximized right now for everybody, and that's why I called it unbridled passion, because Scorpio is the most passionate of all the signs. And now, of course, when people see the word passion, sometimes they think, sexual stuff. And of course, that's kind of clickbaity, right? But really, passion's just strong emotion, sometimes barely controllable emotion. So we're looking at turbulent waters here in a lot of our hearts. Now, we also need to understand that it really depends on where these planets are landing in your own personal birth chart. If you've got 10 planets in air signs, you're very much in your head, you probably won't be feeling all this turbulence and storminess as much, which is fine, But for those of us who are being stimulated heavily by, Scorpio energies, Mars, Saturn, it's like, we're really feeling it in our emotional world. In our interconnected universe here, where everything has meaning, we are all experiencing energy from the planets, okay? It's not like we are a puppet and the planets have our strings and we move in more or less predictable ways. That's not what it's about. We all are experiencing the either positive or the negative energy from the cosmos that's really running through us right now. It's what we do it that really matters. Now, that being said, Mars and Saturn are in this square right now. They are, you may say negative energies. You could correct that with the word uncomfortable. Mars, the god of war, Saturn, the great malefic, these two in a face-off with one another are typically dreaded in the eyes of astrologers. And it is true. They often do bring hardship. For a lot of us, I think that hardship will be more relational, because there's a relationship focus with a lot of these symbols. But hey, if your Mars and your Saturn are in the more earthy houses, like the 10th, the 2nd, or the 6th, this may be related to, more practical things like job, money, duties, responsibilities, things like this. But broadly speaking, this uncomfortable energy is going through our psyches. Scorpio is very internal. It's fiercely introspective. And again, the most passionate sign. So passions are on high when the two malefics are squared to one another. And can be and is sometimes uncomfortable. But it's what we do with the energy that matters. That's what we're always focused on with evolutionary astrology. How can we take these two baddies, the malefics, and turn them into something quite beautiful? This Mars square Saturn and Pluto is fierce, We combine this with the 4 planets in Scorpio. Basically, we have a turbulent chop in the waters of our emotional world. And that's the uncomfortable energy running through us in this interconnected universe that we find ourselves in. So the question is, what do we do with it? We can either be unaware or aware and use it for our betterment and evolution. If we're unaware, it can, overwhelm us, basically, overwhelm us emotionally. We can get triggered more easily. External stimulus can bother us. We can really get into this place of self-absorption. I don't mean in a egotistical way or a selfish way, but, when we're overwhelmed by our own subjective reality and we get immersed into that through the moodiness and the brooding, which is a darker potential of Scorpio, especially when Mars and Pluto are involved. If we do that, we become self-absorbed, absorb into the self and our own internal processes. And we just become more reactive. And this is where, we are a puppet and the planets have our strings. We let that energy flow through us in a less controlled way. With concentration on awareness, this is a little bit more uplifting and inspiring, because although it can be uncomfortable, we can use it for our betterment. We can use it for the expansion of our consciousness. And, of course, that's what it's all about, right? Not saying it's easy, especially now, it's not easy, but, there is a higher ground. And that higher ground is realizing what's happening and not allowing yourself to lose your own personal power by getting sucked into that turbulent undertow of your emotional world. If you think about it, all those triggers stem from stuff from your past, your emotional wounds from childhood. Basically, the first 7 years of your life. You can think of the first 7 years of your life before your conscious awareness has really come on board. You're really living your life on a very subconscious level. You can think of it as as a child, you're just filming a movie. And, based on the movie that you film is a major shaper of how you perceive your reality. And that includes the good things as well as the not so good things. If we perceive something as a child as bad or hurtful, and it usually stems from the big 3, rejection, betrayal, and abandonment, if we perceive any of those things, it can create hurts in us. It's like touching a stove as a child, and it burns us, and we learn, oh, don't do that again, and it becomes a major shaper in how we react, okay? But all those hurtful emotions that are artifacts of the past are basically all under the umbrella of, I guess you could say, a subset of emotion that's under fear on some level, lower octave emotion. Now, of course, the higher octave emotions that stem under the umbrella of love are really manifestations of our true soul essence, our heart, our soul, whereas the other stuff is basically just learned behavior. If we can stay aware and realize, oh, we're a little touchier during these times, our emotions are likely to be a bit stormier during this time, but it's teaching me a lesson. And let's not let it control my life during this time. It's like, oh, external stimulus. I'm getting triggered. I'm feeling the emotion come up. Let me have more present awareness and not allow it to control me. And let's investigate it. That's a part of Scorpio, emotional investigation. It's the sign of the psychologist. It's like, instead of just getting almost possessed by this emotion, it's like, let's explore this emotion. What's underlying this? Where does this stem? Rejection, betrayal, or abandonment? Like, when do I remember first feeling this emotion? And then investigate it like a psychotherapist would. And the goal being to heal, basically. That's the sign of the shaman, a transmutation of pain. That's Scorpio. And here Mars and Saturn are at cross purposes with one another, maximizing the tension, the uncomfortable energy running through us, so that our wounded places can become more obvious for us, so that we can dive into the ashes to be reborn. That's the Phoenix, and that's Scorpio. It's about emotional healing. If we're really working with the energy in a more, let's say, enlightened way, I guess you could say, but just, with the focus on, okay, how can I use this to grow? In evolutionary astrology, when looking at the archetypal energy of Mars and the evolution in working with it, is about becoming stronger, basically. Mars, the god of war, the warrior, becoming stronger, becoming braver. And it's the path of sharpening your will and developing your courage by facing some fears. Now, we place this in a relationship context, okay? And also fiercely looking inward, since Scorpio is a water sign. It deals with our subjective reality. So facing our own internal fears, our own internal demons, and typically related to relationship, because the Mars is in Libra, a relationship-oriented sign. And then we also have the planet that rules Libra in Scorpio, Madam Venus. Okay, so probably going to play out through our relationships. So any fears that you have around relationships, and that can be a variety of ways that can happen, but it's a time to look at it fiercely within, like a warrior would. But remember, the Mars is square the Saturn. Wherever Saturn is in the chart, it wants you to mature, okay, which isn't easy, but the prize is dignity. But it also wants you to accomplish a great work. So here is Saturn in this face-off with Mars and saying, okay, warrior, how badly do you want it? Saturn represents Mount Everest. It's time for the warrior to climb that mountain. So this is implying that this fears facing now for us isn't going to be easy work, and it will take some blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak. But we can do it. We can use this fiercely introspective time to do a face-off with our own internal demons and find a massive, expansion of our consciousness by healing, basically. But it's going to take considerable effort on our parts. Now, on top of everything I've said so far, we've had this looming Uranus. Uranus during the new moon is directly opposite this sun and moon. Dead opposition. Uranus is at 4 degrees Taurus. The sun and moon are at 4 degrees Scorpio. And Uranus is giving this whole dynamic some electricity. You always think of the image with Uranus as like plugging a plug into the wall. It's like, whoop, we're online. It has a zzz, that sort of feeling to it. It's electric. So this electric stimulus is basically transferring energy, and this will sound a bit exotic, I'll break it down, but transferring energy to our true self, okay, our soul essence, because Uranus has different layers of meaning. You'll commonly hear, sudden events happening in the life, and that's true. That can happen with Uranus, especially if it's in a very sensitive place in your birth chart currently. But really, what's the purpose of us having those sudden experiences? To wake us up, basically, to a higher potential within ourselves. But energy is being transferred to your real self, because Uranus, the main, at least from the evolutionary perspective, is the planet in the process of individuation. Fancy word, basically just means becoming a truer version of yourself. I spoke a bit ago about our, the combination between our true essence, love, light, and peace, our soul, the part of us that's infinite in this body having a finite experience, and then the part of us that's learned behavior. That's a beautiful way of actually looking at Uranus. That is the process of individuation, okay? Because learned behavior covers up, obscures the bright, brilliant, shining light of our soul's essence. Now, when I say learn behavior, I don't mean, learning how to brush your teeth, obviously. All of the negative learned behavior that we learn from culture, conformity, peer pressure, family stuff. Family's probably the biggest one. Where we learn, we mimic, and some of the stuff we mimic is part of our, embedded into our acquired personality. So we have the divine personality and the acquired personality, and the process of individuation is basically taking off the dirty garments of the acquired personality because it's obscuring the light of our soul. So becoming more in line with our true self. So we plug the plug into the wall, Uranus opposite the moon, and energy is being transferred to our real self. So the process of all this scorpionic healing that we're attempting to do, if we can remain aware, which is very, very challenging when we're triggered, but if we're able to do it, if we're able to leverage the superpower that is our focused intent of our consciousness, then we can heal through that. And that healing is removing the garments of the acquired self. So this is, combining all these energies here, the Scorpio and the discomfort of the Mars and the Saturn. And then here we have this, god of earthquakes and lightning bolts, the mighty Uranus, in this opposition to the moon as well, just giving it a little bit more discomfort to the mix, because we're attempting to individuate. That's a beautiful thing. And the more we individuate, the more we raise our consciousness. And this is how we can work with this energy in the highest way. Now, there's something else that can really help us during the next couple of weeks as we're setting this new intention, recentering into our heart, ultimately with the goal to heal. And that is Neptune. Neptune is in a very strong applying what's called sextile right now to Saturn. They're coming very, very close to each other. They're within, a degree apart from one another. So this is kind of our ace in the hole here. Sextiles is a very beneficial aspect in astrology. Now, I'm always excited to talk about Neptune. I have Neptune on my conjunct my sun in my own personal birth chart. So anytime I get to tie it into the story, I'm happy to do so. And Neptune is, it's about spirituality. It's about meditation and metaphysics. And it represents, actually, if you were to distill the words expansion of consciousness, and if I had to pick one planet, it would be Neptune. It's about growth, ultimately, and growing closer to God. Climbing the scale of consciousness. So amidst all the turbulence and the turmoil of dealing with our triggers, okay, here's Neptune saying, just surrender to the process. Okay, have some humility, all right, and compassion for yourself and where you're at in this journey. It's not easy to be here on planet Earth, and it feels like, especially during this time, this is not the most prestigious address in the galaxy. Things getting pretty crazy here, not only in the world, but are in our own personal lives. And just, Neptune it has a sweet energy, okay? And it's saying, have some compassion for our processes. And also, working directly with the energy of Neptune is you can do through meditation. And of course, that's a loaded word. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. There's thousands of ways of meditating. It basically just comes down to, how do you talk to God? So prayer, meditation, just simple reflection and contemplation in a quiet space. Some people prefer to meditate while exercising. My grandmother, for example, she would swim for miles and miles and miles every day. She always said, that's my meditation. Something rhythmic. When I go out hiking, that's my form of meditation. Within a couple minutes, I start connecting with nature, and it's like, whoa, I enter that relaxed state, and I get some really amazing insights when I'm on my walks. So meditation, whatever that means for you, can really be a good thing to integrate into your daily life more fully over the next couple weeks. The reason I picked the title Unbridled Passion, besides the obvious where, our emotions feel a little bit uncontrollable at times, is that word unbridled really rung true for me. And the reason for that is because where there's overlap in meaning between the planet Uranus and Mars, two of the most, in terms of archetypes, independent archetypes, okay? Freedom seeking. That's the word that comes to mind, freedom. So unbridled. So it's time to become unbridled from our own passions, okay? That stem from unhealthy desires, also that stem from unhealthy emotional triggers from the pains of our past, so that we can gain more freedom from ourselves, basically. And with compassion for the human condition, and through some meditation and practicing of presence, we can attain more freedom within ourselves and dramatically raise our consciousness in so doing. And really, when looking at these energies coming up for us for the next 2 weeks, it really feels like we are primed to go through, a massive spike in evolution. We just have to take advantage of it. And that's the evolutionary aim, with the goal always being to expand our consciousness.